Yo guys, what's up? It's XRAYZ. Welcome back to another Call of Duty mobile video. So today I actually wanted to talk to you guys about the most deadly weapons in Call of Duty Mobile. We're going to be going over some of the stats. More specifically, we're going to be going over the most damaging weapons in Call of Duty Mobile. Now, this doesn't mean, these are the best overall guns. Maybe some of you guys are people who are able to control recoil really well. Maybe some of you guys just are not the best with recoil. And if that is the case, then a lot of these probably won't be the type of weapon that you would want to use. These are just simply the most damaging weapons in the game, and that is measured by damage per second. So how much damage each shot does, and then how fast it does it over a course of a minute. So we're going to be going over some stats, we're going to be going over some notes on it as well, and then towards the end of the video, we're actually going to be going over the best, or I should say most damaging weapon from each category, from AR, SMG, Sniper, LMG, Shotgun, and then also Secondary. Now, a lot of these weapons I don't have unlocked, and probably a lot of you guys won't be unlocking for a while, because these are just weapons that are like at, level 100 or whatever. Now, some of these you are actually able to get from buying variants of those weapons in the actual shop. So there is a way to do that, but again, a lot of these you're only going to be able to unlock once you reach like over 100 and some of the levels. Some of them are a little bit lower down. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So anyways, the most damaging weapon in the game currently is actually an LMG. Now this is the S36 LMG. Now this one does 1,125 damage per second. So I have not been able to use this weapon, but I mean, it's by far the deadliest weapon in the game. Second place would be actually the MSMC, which is not that far behind, but this one is definitely by and large head and shoulders above the rest. So it actually does 75 damage per shot, which is actually kind of crazy. And it also has a rate, or at this case, the rating of its how fast it fires is 75. We don't have hard numbers on how many rounds per minute it does, but it is at 75, which is actually one of the highest in the game. I think it might actually be the fastest firing weapon in the game. So the other thing about it, it actually has really kind of bad recoil. It has 35 on the recoil, it has 35 on the accuracy scale, and it's about the same when it comes to the other LMGs when it comes to mobility, so all of them have about the same. The range is actually top tier compared to the other LMGs, but I guess the most important thing is it's got a little bit of a recoil problem, but it does a ton of damage, and it actually is the fastest firing weapon in the game, which is actually kind of crazy. Alright, so we already talked about number 2, but let's talk about it again. The MSMC is the second most damaging weapon in the game, and it does 1,050 damage per second. It does 75 damage per shot, and it actually also has a rate of fire of 70, so it also has kind of that top tier rate of fire. So you probably, if you've been able to use the MSMC from picking it up from someone, you'll probably have noticed already that it has a lot of recoil, like a really insane amount of recoil. As for the accuracy, it's at 45, so that's actually not too bad, kind of middle of the pack, not the worst accuracy of a weapon. The worst accuracy actually goes to the BDW, but it's not the best. It's actually one of the fastest when it comes to mobility of the SMGs, and it kind of is also middle of the pack, definitely actually not more towards the worst when it comes to range. But other than that, it's almost like an Uzi. It's got really small mags, but it does a ton of damage. So if you're someone who's able to handle recoil, the MSMC is probably going to be a really fun and cool weapon for you to use. Alright, so coming up directly under that one is actually going to be the ChiCom, which is another SMG. This one actually does 975 damage per second. Now this one has a damage profile of 75 damage. It has a firing rate of 65, so it's slightly slower at firing than the MSMC, and do remember that this is actually a burst SMG, and that's probably why it's a little bit wonky on the numbers there. It has better recoil than the MSMC, and it has actually about the same mobility and a little bit more range than the MSMC. So if you wanted something that's a little bit more able to control, then the ChiCom is actually going to be one of those guys. So if you want something that does a lot of damage, but it's a little bit easier to control, go ahead and go with that guy. So the next one is actually going to be yet another SMG. Now this is going to be the AKS-74U. I think this is one of the SMGs you pick up actually a little bit early on, so this might be the weapon you want to take and use for a while. But this one actually has a damage per second of 960, so it's a little bit lower than the ChiCom, and then about 100 or 90 less than the MSMC, so it does actually more damage, but it has a way slower rate of fire than the other weapons on this list. So it has a damage profile of 80, which is actually kind of insane. It has a rate or a firing rate of 60 on it, which is, again, kind of like middle of the pack, really, of the SMGs. I think it's dead middle, actually. For accuracy, 55, so it's a little bit less accurate than the ChiCom, but again, it does more damage. There's a little bit of a slower firing run. The mobility is actually the same as the other ones, but it's actually a little bit slower than the MSMC and the ChiCom. And when it comes to range, it's actually another one of those middle of the pack that has a range profile of 35, the highest being right now 40 from the HG40 and also from the ChiCom. So this is a fun one. It's a good all-around SMG. It does have a little bit of a shorter range, but it does a lot of damage. It has a little bit of a slower rate of fire, but it has the second best, I would say, or tied for second best accuracy of all the SMGs. So definitely give that a go. That's actually been the gameplay you guys have been seeing in the background. All right, so let's keep going. Let's talk about the two second deadliest weapons in the game, which are not SMGs. So I didn't want to just put a ton of SMGs on here, but technically these two assault rifles do more damage per second than one of the SMGs, which is the HG40. That one actually is 600 damage per second, which is actually kind of crazy. But anyways, going back to it, the Type 25 and the AK-47 both have a damage per second of 770. That actually is kind of funny because they're kind of the reverse of each other. One does a lot of damage, has a really slow fire rate. The other one does not a lot of damage, but it has an insanely fast rate of fire. So the Type 25, damage of 55. The firing rate is actually 70. The AK-47 is 70 damage, and it has a firing rate of 55. So it's actually kind of funny that they are direct opposites of the damage and rate. The accuracy is actually a little bit better for the Type 25, and then the AK-47 is 45, which is actually slightly worse, not really that bad compared to the Type 25. For mobility, they actually are among the top tier, which is 60 mobility, and then for range, the AK-47 beats out the Type 25 by a lot, actually 65 on the range scale as opposed to 40. So, the notes on the Type 25, it's a high damage per second and also has a very high rate weapon. And then for the AK-47, it does a lot of damage per second, and it does have actually a little bit lower recoil. So it depends on which one you want. I personally have used the Type 25 in the Battle Royale portion, and it actually does have quite a bit of recoil. So if it's that bad, I would imagine that the AK-47 is a little bit worse. But again, those are all of the top tier damaging weapons in the game. Now with that said, I wanted to give you guys 3 more weapons. These are going to be for the other categories, for sniper, shotgun, and the secondary, because I want to make sure that you guys, you know, maybe you're a sniper, maybe you like using LMGs, maybe you like using shotguns, and I wanted to make sure to get you guys a weapon at least from every tier. So let's talk about snipers. Now with the sniper, the most deadly weapon there that does the most damage per second is the M21 EBR. Now this one has a damage profile of 80. It has a firing rate of 35, which is actually the fastest among all of the snipers. Now if you're just trying to do one-shot kills, probably want to go with some of the other weapons like the Arctic 50 or the DL Q33. But then if you're looking for one that's more of a semi-automatic, then you can actually use the multiplayer version, which is 560, which is actually pretty freaking sweet. As for the shotgun, it actually is the HS2126 or the 2126. This is actually the most damaging shotgun by quite a bit. It has a damage profile of 675 damage per second. It does 75 damage, has a firing rate of 45, so it actually does the third most damage, but also has the fastest firing rate, so it's going to be the fastest firing shotgun in the game. So you really want to use this guy because it does have a short range. If you're looking for something a little more middle of the range, probably don't want to use this guy. But if you're looking for something that's just balls to the wall, ton of damage, but it's not exactly the most versatile of shotguns, the HS2126 has got you covered. Alright, so for secondary, this is going to be the last one. We actually have the MW11 handgun, and it does 520 damage per second. It does 65 damage, and it has a rate of fire of 40, which is way faster than every other weapon in the secondary category. The second fastest is actually the J358 revolver, which is 15. So, I mean, it's like twice and a half faster than every other weapon in the game, which is actually kind of crazy. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, guys. I wanted to make sure I made a video where I went through the stats of some of these weapons and told you guys which one does the most damage. And then we talked about some of the counterpoints, what exactly isn't the best thing about it. And I thought this video was very interesting. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on the video, guys. It's super appreciated and incredibly helpful. And if you are new to the channel, if you want to see even more videos like these, I'm going to have a lot more Call of Duty Modern Warfare and COD Mobile news, info, rumors, leaks, and more coming. So make sure you subscribe, have those notifications on so you don't miss a single upload here on the channel. If you guys want to support the channel directly, you can do so by checking out my channel memberships. You get access to early content, exclusive videos, special badges, and more. And then last but not least, if you guys want to talk about anything, Twitter, literally the best place to do so. Go ahead and give me a follow over there. At OGXRAYZ, link down below. You guys have an amazing day. Take care. I'm out. Peace.